Hello and welcome to The Edge. On today's edition, we're having a conversation about access to opportunities, access to capital, and access to wealth that was once reserved for only a few. My guest is a technology entrepreneur who is rethinking how Nigerians participate in wealth creation, not by speculation, but by structure. He is Mayowa Adeosun, founder of Acetrix, a platform democratizing real estate investments in Nigeria, and co-founder of Sycamore, which provides funding access to individuals and businesses. This is a conversation about building inclusive systems, not exclusive wealth. Welcome to The Edge.
Hi, my name is Mayowa Adeosun, founder of Acetrix, the platform that is revolutionizing real estate investment in Nigeria.
Blockchain technology allows you to have the transparency and the information at your fingertips when you need it.
Every powerful idea starts with a gap, something that works for a few but fails for many. In Nigeria, real estate has traditionally been capital intensive, opaque, and inaccessible to the average person. Acetrix was created to change that narrative, breaking down real estate investment into accessible, transparent, and structured opportunities that everyday Nigerians can participate in. Let's listen to Mayowa as he shares the ideas with us.
The idea of Acetrix essentially came when I was observing the real estate market. I was actually at a point where, I was transitioning in place of stay, and I was just like every other Nigerian looking at where to rent, where to look, where to live. And I realized, talking to real estate agents and real estate developers, just how expensive the real estate market is in Lagos, right? And it doesn't really only pertain to highbrow areas. It's just regular. It's all across board. So I was just thinking to myself, in the same way that we democratized financial accessibility in Sycamore, how could we, potentially democratize real estate participation? And that's where the idea was really born. And, I took the learnings and the experience that I gained building capital flows in Sycamore and, building that trust and that transparency, that platform. And I applied it to Acetrix, and that's how it was born. Even till now, it still gives me goosebumps, right? Because everyone would love to say that, they had this perfect vision. They knew that how they would make money, and it's all good in theory, but in practice, it can be very challenging. And Acetrix, we've had enormous luck. We've been very privileged and we're very blessed. But what we're trying to achieve is still very big, and we still have a long way to go, but we're on that pathway. And so discovering the potential is something that we learned as we started the journey, not necessarily at the beginning. At the beginning, it was very uncertain, and I only started with a thread of an idea that I just, continued to pull at, and eventually it blossomed into a new startup. One thing that I've learned is that people there's an emotional connection to real estate. People honestly want to be able to own real estate or even have a sense of ownership. But the challenge is both locally and in the diaspora is that, trust has been completely destroyed based on the agency risk that currently exists. So before now, if you wanted to make a real estate investment and you were living in the diaspora, one of the ways you would do it is you would send money to maybe a relative or to a friend, and while that has had its benefits, it also has a lot of downside risk. We've heard stories about how money has gone missing, how money's been misappropriated. And even if the money does get to the developer, there's developers who end up, using the money for different reasons. So Acetrix essentially is bringing some uniformity, bringing the infrastructure that investors can leverage on to achieve their goals in real estate. And we're also bringing down the barrier of entry. So regular Nigerians, both locally and in the diaspora, can actually now participate in very profitable real estate ventures. And that's what we're very proud of. Interestingly, we started off with just the idea of, okay, let's have somewhere that we can just do fractional real estate investment, right? But then as we explore that concept, we realized that it's not enough to just do the fractional real estate investment. You actually have to build the entire infrastructure from the beginning to the end. Because right now the ecosystem, while there are a lot of players in the real estate space, and we need to actually still continue to collaborate to achieve the greater goal, but there's still a lot of gaps in the ecosystem. So for us to actually effectively do what we set out to do, we had to end up building, the infrastructural pipelines, regulations, some regulatory dashboards, so that regulators can see how transactions are taking place and see the compliance rate and the due diligence that we've put in place. Right. And then for investors, we also need to consider how they, have a particular set of needs. They want to be able to monitor the investments. They want to be able to monitor the milestones. So we need to build all of that as well. So it's more than just originally a fractional real estate investment where you just bring money and we'll give you a return. We actually had to build all of the different layers vertically, so that way investors can really enjoy, investors, developers, and regulators can enjoy the platform as a standalone.
A clear example of how problems birth their own solutions. This is Still the Edge, and it's time for our Money Minute, where we break down how the money actually works. Money Minute is up next. Building platforms that deal with people's money is not glamorous. It is painstaking. Behind Assetrix is the hard work of structuring complaint investment vehicles, building investor confidence, navigating regulations, and educating users who are cautious, and rightly so. The grind also shows up in credit risk, repayment structures, and balanced growth with responsibility. For Mayowa, the grind has been about patience, building slowly, deliberately, and credible in industries where trust is everything. Because in real estate and finance, speed without structure can be dangerous. Our conversation with Mayowa continues on the challenges of building and sustaining this idea.
The biggest challenge that we have to deal with, I think it's the fact that we want to be very rigorous in our due diligence and compliance. We're building a platform that is compliance first. And in a space like real estate, a lot of things have happened that people love to bypass a lot of regulations. They build a lot with the idea of trust. But, what we've seen is that there's been a lot of, bypassing. So we are trying to, enforce some level of compliance by ensuring that the properties on our platform have done all the due diligence, have been vetted, have all the documents in place, have the approvals, which slows down our onboarding, procedures, because we can't just onboard, hundreds of properties because of that. But we're willing to take the slow and steady path, because I think that's what the investors need. They'll prefer to have a platform that, as long as they see it on Assetrix, they know it's gone through a rigorous process to get there, and they can invest in confidence. No, it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge, but thankfully, I have to give full credit to the Assetrix team and call ourselves architects. So we're architects because we're building something for ownership, right? For people to participate in ownership. So it's really the team that we have at Assetrix that have done fantastically well navigating this, very complex environment. But it has been challenging. But that's where the work is. The work is in that challenge. So once we've been able to crack it, that's when we know we're on to something very big. Sycamore was founded in 2019. Myself and two co-founders, Babatunde Akinmoses and Wenye Kunji, we met each other at LBS during an MBA program. And there was actually a class in the MBA program that was talking about, SMEs and their inability to get capital to raise funds. And we learned that the majority of commercial banks lend less than 5% of their balance sheet to SMEs. So we were thinking, how possibly will SMEs get to grow if commercial banks are not lending to them? So that was where we noticed the gap, and we thought, okay, so how can we fill this gap? And at that time, there was a very popular model that hadn't really been explored very well in this part of the world, and it's called peer-to-peer lending. So we decided to form Sycamore as a peer-to-peer lending company to solve that gap and see how we can empower SMEs. Because we understand the importance of SMEs and how it motivates and drives the economy. So that's how we started. And we started very humbly in Tunde's living room. And the very first couple of years, I think it grew to maybe, 10 to 15 in staff. But I think after the second, third year, things started to pick up quite rapidly. We saw growth, we saw expansion, and now, to my knowledge, we've dispersed around 40 billion in loans from 2019 to 2025, and the majority of that has come in the last 2 to 3 years. So it just also shows, if you stick at something long enough and you have a very good value proposition, you can see a lot of growth, and it's not going to be linear. It can be exponential when you really, really work hard. One of the early mistakes that we made, and I think every founder makes this mistake, because you're so excited about the problem you're trying to solve, and you're excited about growing a team, that sometimes you are very quick to hire. Right? You're just trying to hire anyone who can solve that problem for you. And I would say that can be a very big mistake. I've learned from that, many times. And even though you have a pressing need, you have to be able to balance that pressing need with the long-term consequences of bringing in someone who doesn't fit the culture of what you're trying to build. So that has been one of the lessons that I've learned. And as a leader, as an executive, one of the most important things that you can do is building that culture, building that team. And that's one of the primary responsibilities beyond even just the business activities, is, being a steward of the company and ensuring culture and the innovation and collaboration is at its best. Trust takes a lot of time to build, and you have to start off gradually. So as you're starting off gradually and you're building trust, you're layering on top of that by delivering and by executing on your promise. So I think that's one of the things that we've done at Sycamore, and also what we're doing at Cedric. We're trying to, continue to layer on the trust that we've built by executing and delivering consistently, and really just, giving opportunities for listening and hearing and interacting with our stakeholders. Like later on today, for example, I have a stakeholder session with the real estate developers. We want to learn and listen to their pain points and continue to make sure that we're building with them in mind. So that's how we build trust, when they know that we have them in mind and that we're listening and that we're applying those lessons.
Never underestimate the power of pushing. Speaking of pushing, it's time for our Edge Quote, that segment of the program where we bring you words to push you further into living that idea. Here is our Edge Quote for today. So what is the real edge here? It's not just about technology, it's intentional design. Mayowa's edge lies in building platforms that simplify complex industries without diluting their integrity. Real estate becomes understandable, funding becomes structured, risk becomes measured. In a market where many chase hype, the edge here is clarity, compliance, and long-term thinking.
I would say it has a lot to do with the people behind the business. Myself, I have spent the last 6-7 years in financial services, building a fintech company, Sycamore, and all the learnings that I've taken from there, the experience and the insights I'm applying to Assetrix. Then I have the architects, the technical guys in Assetrix, who have a variety, a well diversified background, mostly in blockchain technology, project management, community engagement. So there's a lot of different players in Assetrix that adds incredible value, that makes us stand out and gives us that edge. And I think the main edge that we have is our ability to just, understand our customer, right? To understand our customer, to engage with our customer. I think that's what's going to give us the edge going forward as we expand and we grow. Integrity for me is just knowing that you have to see the bigger picture, right? And I think I learned that early in my career when I was working as an insurance underwriter. And a lot of my superiors at that time were people of great integrity. And they kind of explained it to me, just, you have to see the bigger picture. It's not about today. Your name and your brand travels far beyond, what today can see. So that's the way that we build. I mean, while money is good, money doesn't move us in the way that someone who had those type of, challenges will move them. So integrity is doing the right thing when even people are not watching, and it's keeping the bigger picture in mind, because you don't want to spoil your name, you don't want to spoil your brand, and you don't want to spoil the hard work you've put in for something that is not going to need anything in the future. My edge would be my story, right? And I mean, I've talked about my story in the past in some other publications, but essentially my journey has been a very interesting journey. I mean, everyone's journey is interesting. My mine is very peculiar. I returned to Nigeria in 2011. Before then, I had never been in Nigeria before. I was born and raised in the UK. When I came to Nigeria, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone. I started working in legal assurance. I was a customer service representative, which I now look back as a blessing, because what it really showed me was I was front facing. I was facing the customer. I understood what customers needed, and I took a lot of that learnings and I applied it. I improved my capacity. I continue to learn and continue to explore ideas and concepts. And it was a gradual journey. And over the next 15 years, I am here where I am today. So that's what gives me the edge. And I think everybody should learn from, not necessarily thinking obstacles and challenges in the past is bad, right? I think sometimes you can take learnings from those obstacles and from those challenges and from those frustrations and apply them in a way that can be very creative and give you the edge in today's society.
Today's Edge tip is for investors, founders, and professionals. You need to know what to do and how to do it to get the results. Here is where you get it. Edge tip is up next. Looking ahead, the future of wealth in Nigeria will be shaped by platforms that simplify access without compromising trust. As more Nigerians seek alternative investment paths and smarter funding models, systems like Assetrix and Sycamore point to a future where participation is broader and more intentional. The next phase of growth won't just be digital, it will be representative. Mayowa tells us about it in the concluding part of our conversation.
I think fintech is approaching maturity. And I say approaching maturity because there are several fintechs out there. And I think the main opportunity for fintechs is to not only speak to the middle class and to the upper class, but also to try and bring in people who have not been captured, who still need financial services today. And how they can do that is still by ensuring that everybody has access, and how they access the solutions that the fintechs are providing. That's where creativity can be made. As far as accessories, I think what our mission is to just try and make more people able to benefit from real estate. And that's not just in Lagos. We're starting in Lagos, but we have very big plans to move to Abuja, Port Harcourt, and even outside of the country, because this is not just a Nigeria problem. This is an African problem. And we think in the next 3 to 5 years, we should be able to expand across Africa. And we're carrying everybody with us from diaspora and locally, and being able to have that cross-border real estate investment. So you can be living in Nigeria and you can be investing in real estate fractionally in Kenya or in Zimbabwe or in South Africa. And you can just diversify your portfolio that way. You don't need to be a HNI or high net worth individual to do that. You can have access at a very affordable rate. And that's what most Africans want worldwide. So that's what we're going to provide them. What we're doing is right now we're starting with the websites. We have a web app. But eventually we'll move to a mobile app, because I think more people have mobile phones in their hands. They might not have a laptop, but they have a mobile device. So we'll move to mobile in the near future. But in terms of the solution, what we want to be able to do is, instead of putting your funds in maybe another fintech app that's giving you a return, we want to create more than just a return in terms of financial return. There should be some sort of tangible benefit, right? So by investing in accessories in the real estate properties that we have fractionally, what you're also doing is that you're empowering yourself to take advantage of the financial opportunities. And what do I mean by that? Real estate has always been the biggest wealth creator known to man. That's one. And two, when you invest in real estate, you now actually invest in a collateral that's or an asset that can be used as a collateral. So we imagine a future whereby you have tokens in a real estate project that you can use as a collateral, that you can go and get more capital from somewhere else, right? So you put your 5 million naira into real estate, and then you go to a fintech or a financial partner, and you get another capital of 4 million or 4.5 million on that. So essentially you have a pool of 9.5 per se. So that's how the very wealthy have done it. And that's now how the average person can achieve that too. I think my legacy would be, don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't be frightened. Explore your talents, explore your skill sets, and build relationships, because you're going to need them along the journey. So my legacy, I think, is representative of that. And I also want people to just be, open-minded to building things that the world really needs and that really adds value and has a positive impact. And it shouldn't really only be about financial. There should be some level of, impacts that goes beyond finances as you build. So that's a legacy I want to leave. And I believe the next generation can do more. And I pray that they do more in their turn.
Amazing journey on the show today. It's almost a wrap on today's edition. But before we go, here is how to connect with us. Thank you for staying through with us. Today on The Edge, we explored what it truly means to expand access, not just to money, but to opportunity. My guest, Mayowa Adeosun, reminds us that wealth creation is evolving, and the smartest systems are the ones that bring more people along. That's all on The Edge today, but I will be back next week with another inspiring story. But until then, you stay bold, stay inspired, and stay on the edge. My name is Tochi Eputa. Take care and see you next time.